Hello everyone. We're just getting settled in here online before we get started for today. We're just going to give everyone a minute to come into the room and let everything go live. So hi everyone, I'm Heather. I'm our program manager over here at ACS. And today we're doing a taste test informational meeting for 2023, our CCSE. And we're going to have two members of the ACS certification committee that are going to be here to answer your questions and go over our taste test and other information. And we have some other people in the background to also answer questions if we need it. So please feel free to follow along as we go over the taste test for 2023. Feel free to put comments and questions into the Facebook comments. We are recording, so this recording will be available later to all our members and non-members on the ACS website and in our Learning Center. And if you have questions after the recording and live webinar, please feel free to email us at info@cheesesociety.org. Now on that note, I'm going to pass this over to Gabe and Andy. Over to you, Gabe.
Hi there, I'm Gabriel Salazar. I help run the taste exam for ACS. I'm a 2013 CCP and I'm the National Sales Manager for Sweetgrass Dairy currently. Very excited you guys could be here with us. And we're just going to kind of go over a brief outline of what the taste test itself looks like as far as prep and everything else. So next page, if you could, Heather. All right. So the taste test itself, this is going to ask you to characterize the cheeses. They do not have to be American cheeses. They can and likely will be cheeses that represent other countries as well. A big note to make on this is you are identifying the cheese against itself and its attributes. You will not be evaluating it against a standard of identity for any specific cheese. Next slide. All right, so overview. So basically you will be sitting down over the span of 3 hours and we'll have an opportunity to evaluate 12 different cheese samples themselves, and then also look at 10 single attribute samples that you'll just smell and assess as far as milk with attributes kind of introduced into it. And at the same time, we will have 10 experts all doing the same thing at the same time in another room, kind of generating what that consensus score is for those cheeses. Next page, Andy, if you wouldn't mind jumping in for a second.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. How's it going, everyone? I'm Andy Fitzgerald, 2012 CCP, 2018 CCSE, and I'm the sales director with SOT Foods, Pannier company out of California. I help run the moderating team or the norming team. And so we're going to go over just kind of what to expect as far as what you're going to be doing on the day of. So when you get in, we'll have a little intro and get you all set and everyone settled in and go over how the test's going to run. And then we stagger everything out so that way the cheeses come out in flights. So they're not all sitting out on the table, maybe, falling out of being in temper. And that way you don't feel too pressured to try and run through all the cheeses. So 1:30, first flight of cheeses come out. You're going to have a certain amount of time to be able to go through those. Heather, if you want to just give a little click for me, please. Yep. And you got the next flight comes out 30 minutes later. And then another flight comes out 30 minutes after that. And the final flight comes out 30 minutes after that. You shouldn't feel too pressured as far as when the flights come out that you should be needing to keep up with them. That being said, 30 minutes is pretty good for being able to evaluate each cheese. And the 3-hour window for the total time taking the test should be ample time. When we did the test last year, I think most people were done within about 2.5 hours, if not sooner. Next slide, please. All right, so as far as how the cheeses are identified and labeled, They will not be branded. To Gabe's point about evaluating the cheese against its standard identity, that's part of what's important in not showing the brand or the name of the cheese. We don't want you to be evaluating it against like what a cheese that you are familiar with, and then going through and saying, hey, like this is a particularly good wedge of Prairie Breeze, if that were one of the cheeses. So that's why we're going just based on specific subcategories of cheese. If you want to give another click, obviously no maker in there. We don't want to have anything in there that could somehow influence how you're evaluating the cheese. You are just evaluating the cheese based on what type of cheese it is. Want to give another click. Here are some examples as far as different types of cheeses that you could see on the test. Heather, if you want to just keep clicking through, it'll pop them all up. So these are all different types of subcategories of cheese that are part of judging and competition. So we run abreast of what they do as far as for evaluating cheese and what the categories are. Give it another click for me, please. And we got some animations, and I think we got one more thing that pops up. So, like I said, they're going to be identified based on the actual categories used for J and C. And then we have international cheeses can be in there. So basically all that's going to do is that's going to fall within the actual category that it would be if it were a domestic cheese. And then we have the cheeses will come out as far as in the flights, they'll be coming out in increased intensity of flavor and aroma. So that way we're not going to start you out with say like a 2-year age blue cheese and have palate blowout or anything like that. Like we want everyone to be successful. We can go to the next slide, please. So as far as the evaluation, this is going to kind of go through what you get to do. So everyone is going to get their own piece. So what you get is you're going to get an actual plate, and you get to go up to the table that's going to be staffed by some of our volunteers. And they're going to have a piece of the cheese that everyone will evaluate the same as far as for visual attributes. And that's one that you don't take back with you. And then there's also going to be your own personal piece that will be actively cut for you that you then get to take back, and you get to evaluate for aroma, texture, and flavor. You want to give a click. Yep. And as you can see at the bottom, again, we are not judging the cheese, you are evaluating. So you want to be removing the subjectivity as best as possible. So you're just going to go through and like if you know it's a cheddar, you're going to go through and you're going to identify whether or not the standard attributes for a cheddar are there, and then potentially any off characteristics. Next slide, please. And I'll hand it back to you, Gabe.
Sure thing. All right, so test prep tips for the cheese evaluation. There's you. Could you give me about 3 clicks, Heather? So you and your evaluations are purely your thoughts and opinions, so it is completely subjective. So if you can, you need to find a study buddy. They could be somebody local or somebody remote. You could spend some good quality time on Zoom with them. And basically, if the two of you can sit down and do some tasting evaluation together, taste individually and silently, like it says on the list, and record all of your biases or observations, and then talk about it afterwards, then you can kind of identify what each of you are tasting and observing and what you think about it. But if you each do it individually to start with, you can kind of control any sort of bias, where if you're just sitting there talking and tasting at the same time, you might kind of convince each other of something because of your own bias. So it's really important to sit down, think individually, and then kind of work with one other person or even as a group. And through that, just discuss, compare and contrast your individual observations and whether or not they're purely individual to you, or if it might be kind of an observable opinion across a bunch of people. And take really good notes on all of those. I think as you taste through things before, during, and even after the exam, you really do start learning some of your own palate biases that you might have and other people's. And so just a really great way to kind of learn and experience how your palate, everybody else's palate, and what quote unquote normal tasting looks like. If you could, Heather, go ahead and click again. So yeah, basically you just need to sit out there and evaluate cheeses, all sorts of cheeses. We'll get into the actual sheet here in a few minutes, but there are quite a number of different categories of cheeses that could potentially be included on this exam. So it's good to try to taste across as many varieties, categories, and subcategories as you possibly can, just to kind of learn your palate, learn what those attributes are in all of those different cheeses. Definitely remember that American international cheeses are all fair game. But no matter where that cheese is from, that J&C competition categories will show you what category it should belong in, and will guide you to the right score sheet. And this is an important note. You might be confused when matching an international cheese to a category like American made international style. You would just need to kind of pretend that you're not looking at that actual imported cheese and look at it as if it was being categorized as an American made cheese. I think 2 or 3 clicks here, Heather, should get us through this. So this URL right here will take you straight to the score sheets for all of the different categories of cheeses that Judging and Competition does, where we draw all of our attributes and such from. Definitely go in there, download some of those, make sure you're using them when you're going through and practicing tasting. These will really help guide you. There are a fair number of attributes and such on these sheets that are fairly similar sounding, that you really need to kind of work out the difference between. And I think one more click, Heather. Yep. And then we've got the ACS Judging and Competition categories, which will be reflected on all of those score sheets, but these will give you very detailed breakdown of exactly what the categories, all the subcategories are, and examples of what each of those cheeses will be. So again, really important tool for study, being able to look at these and study across as many of the different styles and types as you can. This is actually the header for last year's washed rind cheese attribute sheet. So yeah, definitely look through those. Great place to come up with questions for yourself, for your study buddy, and then if you are working with anybody who's guiding you through this whole process, you'll come up with lots of questions through there as well. And I believe we're ready for the next slide, Heather. So the precise meaning of all those attributes on those sheets, just to make sure that you have a very good, clear idea of what all of these attributes are, what's meant by them, and just really kind of their general definitions. We've got this URL right here as well that gives you the cheese and dairy product lexicon and glossary. So that way, if you're looking at a cheese and trying to decide whether or not it's coarse, if you know these definitions right here on the right really, really well, this should give you a very clear idea of what is meant for that attribute in the actual definition from Judging and Competition across all categories. And next slide, Heather. All right. So how the single attributes will work, at the same time that you are getting your first 3 cheeses at just at the beginning of the exam, You'll also receive your 10 single attribute samples that will be in numbered cups. They will all be filled to some height with milk that has had some sort of adjunct or adulterant added to it to reflect a specific attribute that we're looking for you to identify in it. You can go through all 10 right there and then the moment that you receive all of them, or you're also welcome to stagger them through as you taste through all the other cheeses over the next few hours. I think we've got a couple clicks in here as well, Heather. Yep. So they will be up here. Each cup will be identified. And please only use these for aroma. There isn't anything harmful in the milk, but I'm sure there's certain adjuncts that are put in there that probably wouldn't be too pleasant to taste. And especially if you've had it sitting out for a couple hours as you're tasting through all of the other cheeses, you really wouldn't want to taste it. And you'll just want to reflect this sample of milk to the attributes down below, and then mark them accordingly on your Scantron sheet, which we will get into the Scantron sheet a little bit more. So again, this is really, really going to be focused on aroma. So make sure that you're really practicing at getting the aromas of a bunch of these different attributes on this sheet beforehand to have a really clear idea of what you're going for. There can be some very similar aromas between things like chive or onion or other alliums that you might be being asked to differentiate between. And next slide, Heather. All right, and along with your overall score sheets for the actual tasting part of it, there is the attribute sample identification sheet that you can download to practice with as well. So we have this URL here for you to look at, and just really dive into those, because you do, like on this example, we'll see something might be defined as smelling kind of like animal, which could either be, barnyard or other, or break down into all those other categories in 1 through 5. So either by yourself or with your study buddies, take this sheet, look at those things, look at the lexicon as far as those attributes and what they're really defining those things at. Get some milk, get some fun things to put in milk to make it smell interesting, and do some practicing on replicating those attributes and being able to clearly identify them, relying on your sense of smell. And next click, Heather. And yep, there's you blind tasting. So as far as the actual exam day, arrive early to check in, just to make sure you have time to get there, get settled, make sure you have everything you need. You'll need to check in with somebody at the counter there to get your Scantron forms and everything else. So make sure you've got time to do that and feel comfortable. You can bring whatever bags you have with you, but you will be asked to set them to the side of the room, or potentially in another room next door to it, so they're out of the way. And you will not be allowed to use anything other than what you were given to take the test. Definitely plan on dressing warmly, which sounds a little odd for July in Des Moines, Iowa. However, we typically hold these in fairly large convention rooms, and quite often the AC is cranked in there, so you want to make sure you're comfortable or you're taking the exam. You can bring in your own water. We will have a water station available. We'll have palate cleansers as far as crackers and some fresh fruit. We will have pencils there provided for you. After the test has begun, we will not allow people in. So definitely make sure, again, you're there a little bit early so you can make sure to get in and be comfortable and not be racing in at the last moment. Also, be very sure to fill out your Scantron forms carefully. This means the information on the forms that will correctly identify you as well as the answers you provide. We want to make sure that we can trace back every sheet to every person that takes the exam. Bathroom breaks are fine, but there is not any extra time given. So make sure that you're accounting for that. And you can leave whenever you're finished. We've had people finish up in an hour. We've had people finish up right at the 3-hour mark. It really just depends on your comfort level and how many times you kind of want to go back through and re-examine your work. And next slide, Heather. Oh, I think that was it. So I guess, Andy, do you have any input on any of those last few things, or should we move right on to questions?
Yeah. So a few things on the for like with the single attributes. When I studied for the test back in 2018, I was lucky enough to have some friends that were also taking it that lived in the same area. And so what we did was we had one person prepare a handful of the samples based on what's available on that list. I want to say that there's about 50 different single attributes that could be on the actual single attribute aroma identification. We went ahead and had that one person do it. I would highly advise that you would want to put the milk into either a plastic or a glass container, just so that you don't have any adulteration of the aroma via like a paper cup. When we actually do the single attributes at the test, they actually were in like plastic ramekins with a lid on them. We were advising people to actually shake them, kind of, like basically get it all frothed up so that the aroma comes out a little bit more easily. Also, as far as the single attributes are concerned, like when we're preparing them, we're not looking to we don't try and make them like super subtle where like you have to try really hard. Like it should be pretty clear what that actual single attribute is. Like if we were to do pineapple, it should smell like pineapple. It shouldn't be like, is that pineapple? Like you should know that it's pineapple. But then it looks like we had some questions come through. One of them that came through was asking about how to find study buddies. That's a great question. We are going to be working with ACS team, try and get some study groups together, I believe is the intent. Heather, you might be able to answer that one a little bit better than me since I can't really guide people on that.
Yeah, so this is Jamie here. In the past, what we've been able to do is connect people in the same area who want a study buddy or want to form study groups. So feel free to drop us an email and say, I'm taking CCSE or even the CCP, and can you tell me if there's anyone in my area that could be my study buddy? So then we'll just take a look at the candidates for the year and then let you know and then send you both an email.
Yeah, just to add on to Jamie, please reach out to us, and our email is info@cheesesociety.org. You can technically email if you know somebody on the certification committee, but we highly suggest emailing us directly, and then Jamie will go through and see who else is on the list. A lot of the times people within the same company are taking things at the same time. One of the examples we use a lot is Harmon's has a tendency to put in a group together and they do a big study group at the same time and prep for a few months. But yeah, reach out to us and we'll try and connect anybody. And if there's nobody in your area, we can try and be like, hey, this person is also looking, would you like to be remote study buddies? As Gabe suggested, sometimes it's about getting to know someone very closely over Zoom. So hopefully that's helpful with the study buddy part. Please reach out to us. We really want to help where we can. So hi guys, I've got a couple questions here, and it's sometimes re-emphasizing some stuff that you said. So we had the question, and it goes back into the things that you focus in on. You're judging the cheese on itself, but people are asking, will the cheese have defects? Should I consider the defects when we're looking at the cheese that's given to me?
That's a great question. The answer is maybe. It could. The intent with the way that we do it is we're actually going to be pulling product that's from the supply chain. So we're not going to necessarily get sent bad wheels from like a specific cheesemaker. This is going to be product that could be for sale at retail. So there could be defects for sure, but it will hopefully not be anything like, as ghastly as like a split wheel or like having mold developing on the inside or anything. But the point is, when you get it, that's what, like, you could or could not have negative attributes in there. Like I would lean more towards looking at it that way rather than having like heavy defects in it. Like the only one that could be more in line with that is if we do anything that's going to be like along like an Emmental style. That one's actually pretty fun to get into the lexicon with, because there's multiple different descriptions for poor eye formations. Stroibel's my personal favorite.
Mhm. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Andy.
Yep.
So hopefully that answers a little bit the question about defects. And next question we've got, people always ask this one and it really highlighted in, will there be palate cleansers? Yes, there will be palate cleansers and a variety of palate cleansers available throughout the test. So you will have a lot of different options to like clean out your mouth and get yourself refreshed from the next, as all the guys were referring to, the next flight of tastings that is going to happen.
Yeah, there will be crackers, bread, fruit. We even do coffee beans for being able to reset when you're doing aroma identification. Smelling the coffee beans helps for a reset. So yeah, there's definitely more than enough to help clean up between each cheese that you try.
And I also want to highlight, because I know I got confused the first time that I ever witnessed doing the taste test. Don't drink the samples. Don't drink the milk samples.
Please don't.
Will not be pleasant for you. Don't drink them. You're just trained to do the aroma and scooping in the scent. No mouth, only nose. Okay, one of the other ones, and this one is always something that it gets a little complicated since it's so vast. Do I need to memorize all the J and C categories, like including butter and yogurt? Like, do I need to have those all memorized?
I wouldn't say you have to have them memorized, but you should be familiar with them. But like, we haven't done like a butter or a yogurt. Like, I mean, it's been in years past, like cheeses you may or may not see. Fresh mozzarella, ricotta, cheddar. I mean, like a fromage blanc could be in there. Different types of Swiss, wash rind, blue, soft ripened brie. Like, you're going to see those, but memorizing them isn't going to be as important as being familiar with the attributes that are on that J&C sheet. So just, that's where the practice comes in. Like, you get your soft ripened cheese, you pull up the J&C sheet for that specific subcategory, and you go through and evaluate. But there isn't any like actual having to like remember it. Like, it'll all be written down.
And sometimes how we've talked about it too is sometimes it's good to be familiar with the big, broad part of the category. So we're how judging and competition and design, there's subcategories, like you have a soft ripened cheese and then you have a subcategory. So maybe be best familiar with those big categories. And let's see. What do we mean by J and C sheets? Do you guys want to expand on that?
Sure, that's the judging and competition sheet. So that's going to be, you'll get, let's see, basically you get a packet when you take the test. And so you have your Scantron, and then you're going to have one sheet for every single one of the cheeses. And it's going to have the full list of attributes that you're going to be evaluating for each one of those cheeses. So it's not going to be that you're going to have the same list of potential attributes for the ricotta as you would for the Emmental. There's going to be different lists within that. And then you take your answers, and that translates over to the Scantron. But we also highly advise that you mark it on the sheet as well, because you'll be turning everything back in at the end.
And just to highlight, when we say using the word judging in competition, these things are specific for the taste test, these sheets that we are using. They're using the vocabulary that we have developed with judging in competition. And we have also used the different subcategories and things of that nature. So it goes hand in hand with our judging in competition and with our taste test, how we're using some of this different vocabulary to develop the sheets for the taste test. I hope that helps clear up some of that too. So we seem to be getting lower wear down in questions, but we wanted to highlight to people that if you have questions after you're viewing this later, or questions about how you approach the taste test, how to find a study buddy, please email us at info@cheesesociety.org. Us as staff will be happy to connect you with someone on the certification committee if you have a more specific question that we can't answer, but we're happy to help and help make your studying as easier as we can. But maybe one of the questions is, why do you think that someone should take the taste test? Like what is the reason that you think someone should take the taste test? And this is kind of to both of you.
Because it's fun.
I mean,
It's really fun. It's super fun. This test is for anyone that works with the product. I mean, like, I started in retail, and like this is exactly like this is going through and taking what I learned and the skills that I honed while working at the retail counters, and being able to find a test that I can apply it to. Like, I mean, the people that are cutting and wrapping cheese at store level, like, you're evaluating these cheeses to make sure that they're good to go out, right? Like, this is your opportunity to take like what you do on a day-to-day and go take a test, go crush a test. Like, it's super fun.
and Gabe, you're muted.
Yep.
All right. The taste exam is something too that I think almost any aspect of the industry that you work in, you can definitely take away a lot of really useful skills and information from. And of course, like as Andy was saying, if you're a monger behind a counter, that's going to have you give you a better idea of, you know, what your best cheeses are right now and how to encourage people to buy them or try something new. Or if somebody comes to you with, I like this type of cheese, this will give you a good idea of what attributes they're looking for to cheese, so you can guide them to something new. But again, if you're somewhere else, if you're a cheesemaker, an affineur, of course, this directly applies to what you're doing every day in your day-to-day and probably the tasting you're already doing. And if you're in somewhere like sales and distribution, you know, again, this gives you the tools to be a better salesperson and clearly identify what it is you're selling and what the great attributes are about those specific cheeses. And on the distribution side, you know, hopefully you're checking the quality of your product, and if there are quality issues or something is tasting especially well, you can take that information and break it down a little further to give to either your sales team or your quality control team, or even feedback to producers. So it really just does give you tools to use completely across the industry.
Excellent. Thank you both. And also to add on to the end of that, for everybody that comes and takes either the CCP or the taste exam, or you've previously taken the exams and you are a certified CCP or CCSE, you also have the big certification reception afterward, because everyone that's after they've taken the exam, they need a moment to just like de-stress. So we do have the big reception of where it's a good networking event for those that are just taking the exams and those that have previously earned their certification to network with our new CCP and CCSEs. So it's great to welcome more people into our industry world as they're stepping up in their career. So thank you, everyone, for coming in and coming to our live. If you're watching this again with later, this is going to be available on our website and on our learning center. Again, if you have any questions, email us at info@cheesesociety.org. But on that note, I think we're ready to tune out. So we wanted to say goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you so much, Gabe, for chatting with us for the last half hour. And We hope you guys all have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.